Before getting to the pod, quickly, we had a couple of technical difficulties, but it doesn't affect the podcast at all. So it will sound all normal. Everything will be normal. There'll just be parts of the podcast where Peter is essentially monologuing. So I was sending him questions over Instagram DM while he's talking because for some reason, whatever happened with connection. So some parts it might be like that, but other than that, it kind of comes back near the end and at the beginning. So podcast is still good. Heaps of great information. And you just have Peter talking for a lot of it, going through everything. And while I'm here, make sure you check the description as well. The conditioning mentorship is open for cohort 4. So if you're interested in joining myself and Dr. Andrew Usher through this cohort where it covers 8 weeks of just pure, you can say, the underlying physiology and then the practical application of being able to take heart rate data and then be able to prescribe your intervals or at least your conditioning off of what you have in front of you. So you can do this for yourself or even your athletes. Then I highly recommend you check that out. It is down there. It is open. We start in February and you can join that. We've had guys, various different sports all over the world, different levels. We've even had fighters in the cohort with no sports science or coaching backgrounds take the information and implement it for themselves. So we've made it very practical. There's lots of information there, community, all the help you need. So join that. And while we're here too, if you're after a meal delivery service, make sure you check out Trifecta Nutrition down in the description. There's a 40% discount code off your first order. You can get pre-made meals delivered to you, or you can get each individual ingredient delivered to you. For example, a tray of chicken or steak, and then a tray of rice or potatoes, whatever it is, and vegetables, and you can make it yourself. So heaps of different options, lots of different stuff down there. Check that out, and you can hopefully enjoy this podcast as we talk everything nutrition and weight cutting.
It was definitely more of a business decision to go.
Yeah.
So I moved from Australia a year ago and decided to make the move and then never looked back.
That's good. Damn, that's good, man. That's good. Because last time you were on the pod, well, maybe over 2 years ago now.
I think
it was a long time ago.
I think it was in Australia.
Yeah, it was three years ago. You're on the pod. You were making your moves there at 1FC. Now you've got anyone and everyone. So I think the first place I actually wanted to start this, and you don't have to go into the details of all the new stuff, etc. But with, I guess, the biggest mainstream news when you started working with Rod Tang, and he had a history of essentially missing weight before working with you. So it'll be interesting. I think what will be really interesting for the listeners is kind of maybe it doesn't have to be share whatever you can or are happy with sharing, and if not, but more so like, okay, what are those kind of common mistakes that some fighters are potentially making to miss weight, and then what are the changes that you look to make to essentially get him back on track?
Yeah, so with the Rodtang situation, he missed weight again to fight at Outwork with Jacob Smith, and he lost his belt on the scale. And that was November 24, I think. And then it was around December time, I got a message from one of the guys from One Championship. They were like, we want you to work with Rodtang for this fight against Takeru. I was like, okay. I've worked with one in the past because they hired me to work with Superlek about a year previously to get him on weight. He was also fighting Takeru in Japan. So had that kind of connection. So we had like an initial meeting. Obviously from a business and like a fan point of view, it was like, this is sick working with like Rodtang. Like,
yeah.
Let's do it. So I had initial meeting. And I think it's just with Rodtang and a lot with the Thais as well, is they just don't have that nutrition knowledge. Like the initial meeting was about like what you usually do, what like how have you made weight in the past, and some of the things he was saying were just like crazy, like stuff like he didn't eat for 2 weeks before he fought. He was having like boiled chicken and an egg like the final couple of weeks. Never worked with a nutrition coach before, and just basically winged it. And it's quite funny because someone at that level and that fame, and most people know Rodtang is like, and they're still doing things like that way. So when I look at things like that, it's like, I'm only going to have a positive impact. I can implement a couple of things and it's going to make a difference.
It can't get worse.
And I was trying to think of like, what would be the best way to work them, because me giving him a meal plan and you've got to cook this and the language barrier. And so I was like, what's the best way for me to do this and make it as simple as possible? Like, and one of the things I thought about was using a meal prep company. So there's a meal prep company in Thailand called Pure Prep. So I've used them before when I have fighters in fight week. In Thailand, you can kind of build your own box, and perfect for fight week meals that, you know, especially in Thailand where there's not a lot of options. So I've had that connection with them before. So I reached out and said, look, want you to work with us for Rod Tang's camp. So I said to Rod Tang, like, what type of food do you like? He's like, I like spicy food. I like beef. I like rice. I was like, okay. So this is where, you know, you can go really detailed and you got to do this and got to do that. I was like, right, the simplest thing for me to do is get him 3 meals a day, send it to his gym, the calorie calculator, they're all weighed out, etc. Give him that. I know based on what he's told me, he's probably still gonna maybe deviate off the plan slightly. So as long as I give him the fundamental, you know, the basics, the breakfast, lunch, dinner, we can kind of work off it, and then we'll track it over time. So the first couple of weeks, it was definitely a bit of a challenge, I think, because he's never worked with someone before.
Mm.
And this English guy, he's probably thinking, who the fuck this guy? Like, so trying to get the message across was probably a little bit difficult the first couple of weeks, and didn't really establish a relationship. And I thought, right, well, what can I do to make this relationship better, where he trusts me, and, you know, I'm not just like giving him instruction, giving him things to do. So I started going to his gym once or twice a week. And then that was probably the game changer for me, where we started to talk, we started like connecting, and we built up a friendship where he's like, okay, I can trust this guy now.
Mm.
And then basically that fight camp was, it ended up being one of the easiest fight camps I ever had with someone. It was like super, super simple. Like the weight came off really easy. And then when it came to fight week, because the Rodtang thing, it was just such pressure to, is Rodtang going to make weight? He's got a nutrition house. So there's kind of a little bit of pressure on me where, you know, this is a big deal. Like I can't really like mess this up. And it came to fight weekend and it was like, this feels like it should be harder than it actually was. And super easy. He was eating all on fight week. He wasn't doing that boiled chicken and an egg. He was eating. We were in Japan, so lucky with the Japan, where you can have, you know, the sashimi. There's really good options for fight week. So he was eating right up until weigh-ins. He had like a kilo to do on the day. He made the weight. We made the weight an hour early. And then we had a couple of games of FIFA before we weighed in. It's like this is the dream scenario. And he obviously you'd see the fight like knocked a kid out, and I think it was like 80, 90 seconds, and it was like, this is it was it couldn't have gone any better. And I think for me, like reflecting on that, the building the relationship was vital. I
Mm.
feel like if I wasn't here, if I wasn't based in Thailand and I was an online nutritionist, it wouldn't have worked. I feel like it just, you wouldn't have followed it. You'd just, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think reflecting on that now, like being based here was a great decision in terms of like helping him make weight again. Like we've got a good friendship now, and it's just, it's interesting to see, yeah, just how far behind the nutrition is in Thailand, and like he's just he's just got so far just based on pure talent, and it makes you think like, you know, imagine he had his nutrition dialed in for the last few
Mm.
years, or he was doing his S&C. Like it's scary to see like how good, like on top of actually how good he is. Yeah, see what I mean? It's just, yeah, crazy.
There's when you say Thailand is behind kind of nutrition, uh, do you have maybe some more examples of, you know, where they typically fall behind compared to maybe other countries, or what they're
I
doing
think
different?
I think it's just a lot passed down, like the cultural thing with Thailand, the way they do things. You know, it's, you know, I feel it's bigger than, say, I think maybe because Muay Thai's been around for a lot longer than a lot of other
Just
martial
a
arts.
lot of tradition.
There's a lot of tradition. This is how this coach did it. And it's obviously similar to what happens in the West, but there's just the nutrition knowledge is lacking, and it is getting better over here. But there's examples where, you know, fighters will run. I've seen one championship, fighters will run in a sweatsuit for maybe an hour outside, and they'll come back. This is on fight week, and then they'll eat a big bowl of rice, and uh, and just the crazy things about, you know, having certain foods which give you power, and it's just
Oh, wow.
it's a lot. It's a
Actually,
lot of
no,
like,
I have heard that, though. I heard that
yeah,
around Eastern Europe, around, like, red meat giving you, what do they call it? I don't know, like, vitality
yeah. This
before big
this one
games.
was, I think this was like, what was it? It was an energy drink, I think. I think it was, and oh, you have this, and it gives you power, and also with Thailand as well, like the economic like status of Thailand. A lot of Thais haven't got that, educational background. Some of them, especially in the gyms, like they haven't got the access to that information in comparison to in the West, where you know it's just a little bit different. And it's definitely improving now because there's gyms in Thailand. I work with a gym called Venom, and at the moment, Venom's probably like, in terms of the quality of fighters that are coming through and succeeding on the one circuit, and even like the RWS circuit is way above everyone else. And that's because like the guy, the owner Mehdi, he's like, right, we want to be the best gym. We need to like get the best people on board. So he's hired me. He's got an S&C coach now. He's expanded the gym. He's doing different classes. He's getting he got a meal prep company on board. So he's getting all them
Wow.
things. And a lot of Thai gyms haven't quite caught up to that yet. And you can see just from the amount of fighters that are doing so well from his gym. I feel like a lot of Thai gyms now are trying to do that. Um, but there's still a little bit behind. Like, I'll give an example where there was a, a a fighter in Thailand who's won one championship, and his manager reached out to me. It's like, we want to work here for this fight, big fight. I was like, okay. We did everything. It was perfect. Weight cut was perfect, and then he fought again, and he thought, oh, I can do it myself now. I know what to do.
Hmm.
And he missed weight, and he didn't fight. And I think sometimes it's like there's still that kind of like, we can still do it our way and be okay. But now, like, he's learned from that, and he's been 8-9 plus camps from me now. But um, it's still maybe a little bit behind from the West. And it's obviously from a business point of view, for me, that's where like I can come in. I'm based in
Mm.
Thailand, so from a business point of view, it's helped me.
Yeah, I can imagine you fill that gap and that need so well. And I think what will be also interesting for listeners is getting some to the nitty-gritty practical side around, even if we just use, we can go more general as well, because I think it might be easier. But even that Rod Tang example, obviously you mentioned, okay, beef and rice, kind of 3 meals a day like that. How does that change as they get closer to the fight in terms of what the makeup of the meal is, maybe even the macros to an extent? There'll probably be some nutrition nerds maybe listening who want to go a little deeper like that. And then how does that kind of change towards the fight to be able to make that weight, I guess, so easily? Oh, you still got me there?
Ooh. A
You still got me?
little bit, maybe. You speak again, maybe.
Yeah, you got me. You got me.
Yeah,
You got me back.
let me check my. Yeah, I've got you. I've got you.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've got you back.
All
Yeah.
right. Do you want me to repeat that question?
Okay.
You got me?
Oh, you've gone again. Wait there.
Oh no.
Is it my end or mine's connection?
I think it might be your end.
So
You still got me?
actually,
You still got me
I can
there?
hear you. Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yep.
You can
Got you.
still hear me? Yeah,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
got you.
Yeah, sweet.
Yep.
Let me repeat that.
Yeah.
So, what might be interesting is
Yep.
going into the nitty gritty of some of the, I guess we
Yep.
could say weight cutting strategies, or at least making weight, and even using that Rod Tang example, even just more general, where he's having beef and rice, a few
Yep.
days, most of the week. How does that change as you get closer to the fight? Whether that's the meals, type of meals, macronutrient breakdown for any of the more nerds out there, and how that maybe changes throughout the week to be able to make weight so easily.
Yes. So I kind of look at it from three different parts, where it's the starter camp, and we look at how much weight they've got. Let's say they've got 10 kilos to lose in 8 weeks. So we set ourselves a target where we want to be on fight week. I'll give the Rodtang scenario. So say He started fight camp about 73 kilos, and he's fighting at 61. So my fight week target for him was like, we want to be around like 65, 66. I don't like to give like really specific, like we've got to be, but around in that range, like, okay, that's what we want to hit. Then we kind of work like, what do we need to lose a week to get to that target? So with his meals, I get his training schedule, how much he's training a day. So for the Rodtang one, when I mentioned it, I was trying to keep it very simple. I tried to stick to there's a principle called the 3-2-1 principle. So 3 grams per kilogram of body mass in carbohydrates. So basically what his weight is times it by 3, 2 grams per kilogram body mass of protein. So his body weight times 2, and 1 gram per kilogram body mass in fat. Same again, just times it by 1. And I was like, that's a simple structure to follow. And certain days where he's having 2-3 training sessions, maybe we increase that carbohydrate intake a little bit more. Whereas if he's having a lower day or rest day, we can drop that down to maybe 2 grams per kilogram body mass and increase the protein and the fat. So we can tweak it from there, and then we can see each week, like, how much weight is he losing. Say he's losing weight too quickly, we know which is a good thing for fight. If you're losing weight too quick, it means we can add a little bit more food, and we can add a little bit more carbs, especially is there certain days and certain training sessions where he feels like he could have a little bit more, then we do that. But then say the other end of the spectrum where he's not losing enough weight, he's not hitting the specific targets, then we go, okay, we need to maybe drop things down. Just kind of tweaking that from there. That's like the basic one to go off. And like the Rod Tang example, he was losing too much weight at one point. So like, okay, well, we need to give him a little bit more. So then I'll contact the meal prep and go, oh, can we increase the portion sizes of the rice? So I'll give an example what he was having. He was having around, each meal is having around 60 grams of carbs, 35 grams of protein, 10 grams of fat, roughly around that. Having that 3 times a day. Then he was having a protein shake, which is around 20 grams, 30 grams of carbs, 30 grams of protein, quite low in fat. And then he was having like some fruit throughout the day. And as the thing is, well, the listeners think, doesn't he have any like kind of like breakfast or oats? Tars will eat chicken and rice, beef and rice 3 times a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It doesn't really matter. Okay? So like they're the kind of meals he was going for. And then when it came to fight week, he was starting fight week at 65, around 65 and a half kilos. So when it comes into fight week, we know he's been having X amount of carbohydrates, especially like the sodium in fight camp, because of the Thai food, the sodium intake is quite high. So we know coming to fight week, as soon as we drop that sodium down, we lower the carbohydrates, we're going to lose a lot of body mass via water weight. So when we arrived in Japan, we started the fight. So the weigh-in was on the Saturday. So on the Monday, we started the fight week plan. So we started a low carbohydrate strategy, which is really good in Japan. So we use like sashimi, and is quite popular in Japan. So them meals are ideal. So like given an idea of what meal we give him, we'd be like 200 grams of salmon sashimi, avocado, maybe some nuts. Maybe he was quite happy with that, maybe 2-3 times a day. And then before training, we maybe give him some like honey and a banana, so a little bit of carbohydrates to fuel his training. And then his weight got down to the day before weigh-in. We did that for maybe like 3-4 days, and then the final day, because he from his personal preference, he didn't want to cut a lot of weight, so we wanted to maybe have a little bit less the day before. Even though I was happy with him to have a bit more, he just wanted to have a little bit less. So in the final day, he only had maybe one big meal. So then he came to the weigh-in morning, which is about 6 a.m, and he had like 1.5 kilos to do, and the rest of that was lost through like active spend for running. But I think I could go into the details in terms of like the one championship weigh-in scenario where it's probably a little bit different.
For sure.
So as most people probably know, with the one championship weigh-ins, you have to do a hydration test. So it's a little bit different in terms of a a little bit different structure in terms of a normal weighing, whereas on a normal fight week, you'd maybe water load to keep the fluid intake high, and then you taper it off. As you get closer to weigh-ins. The one championship is a little bit different. You want to keep the fluid intake high throughout the week, even the day before weighing. So you're still drinking maybe 2, 3, 4 liters of water the day before weighing. So I kind of give the scenario where if you're cutting, say, 2 kilos normally the day before weighing, the day of weighing via active or passive sweating strategies, if you were on one championship, you're probably adding an extra kilo and a half because you're drinking water throughout that fight week in order to pass the hydration test. The hydration test is a little bit of it's probably a bit of a rabbit hole to go down, but basically you've got to, before you weigh in, you've got to pee in a cup and they test your pee, whether it's like hydrated or not. So basically when you're dehydrated, your urine becomes more concentrated. So in metabolic byproducts like urea, creatinine, like proteins. So when you're dehydrated, you pee less. You pee less. So that concentration of them byproducts is more concentrated in urine. So that would make you classed as dehydrated. In the one championship scenario, to get by that, from my method, well, kind of giving the full secrets, but you'd have to drink a large bolus of fluid beforehand, and then that fluid would then sit in your bladder. You probably need a pee when you're doing the wake up, but that's like your hydrated sample. So when you go and pee at the weigh-ins, you've passed the hydration, and then you make weight. So it's a little bit of a different process where, as I said, like if you're usually doing 2 kilos on a normal weigh-in scenario where you're tapering the fluid, and if you were in one championship, you're probably adding a kilo and a half onto that. I hope that made sense anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does that make it more challenging when obviously you're starting to drop carbohydrates, so you're dropping water weight, but then if drinking a lot of water on top, does that make it now more difficult to continue dropping that water weight throughout the week, if that makes sense? Or is the lack of carbohydrates kind of just stop the water sticking?
Yeah, it kind of a little bit like that, where the weight just continue to drop, but like I don't tell the fighters to drink like technically do a water load. It's basically just keeping the fluid intake high enough where like you're peeing clear, you're still hydrated, because this is what a lot of fighters do on one championship. Like when you get a fighter's new onto one championship, they'll do it the old way of like taping the fluid, or the normal way of taping the fluid down. And then you'll hear the stories, oh, you just chug a load of water for the weigh-ins, and then that's how you pass the hydration. Problem with that is, I look at it as like the body's like a sponge. So if you're drinking a lot of water for fight week, and you're pouring water on a sponge, and it's got a lot of water, but you add more, it's kind of, the water seeps away because there's nowhere to stick. Whereas if you're really dehydrated and you use the sponge down and there's no water on that sponge, and you pour that water in, it's going to absorb, if that makes sense. So like so these fighters will dehydrate themselves all week, they'll drink fluid, and the body will just hold on to that, and then they'll go and do the hydration test, and they'll fail, and they're like, oh, I failed. But the kind of method to doing it properly is keeping the fluid intake high all week. So then when you drink the fluid quite quickly, the body's going to want to kind of reject it, because you're still hydrated, rather than if you're dehydrated and you want to conserve that water.
Now, what is your take on water loading outside of, say, 1FC? Because obviously it's a controversial, it's a relatively controversial, I guess, weight cutting strategy, whether it's a water load or not. Is that something you would do outside of the 1FC at all?
So it's definitely one of the things that I've changed my opinion on. When I started off seeing the Read Real papers on the water loads, like this is an effective way, and the more I've been doing this, the more I'm swaying against using, not basically on the science, based on just the fact that a lot of people I work with just hate doing it. It's the stress of drinking that amount every day, the like pain all the time, and the big thing as well is the sleep impact. Where on fight week, I look like I want to make fight week as easy and as less stressful as possible. So if they're waking up in the middle of the night, peeing all night, and then the next day they're groggy, then they've got they've got to go and train, or they've got media obligations, like for the benefit of it, is it worth it? Is the I'm swaying towards it. It's not now. Some people some people like doing it, and some people are used to doing it, and they're pretty comfortable. If you're comfortable doing it, that's cool. But if someone's like, "Do I have to water load?" Someone says, soon as someone says that to me, it's like, "No, we don't." I just kind of go, "Let's just keep fluid intake slightly above normal. Just keep drinking throughout the week as you usually do." And I find that is a better strategy rather than the mental burden of going, "Oh, you've got to go and drink." Especially if you're a big athlete, if you're 70, 80, 90 kilos, and you're drinking that like 7, 8, 9 liters a day. It's just, I just, yeah, I just don't see the benefit from doing it now. Yeah, from like a physiological point of view, like the mechanism makes sense, but I'm definitely swaying towards now like the practical psychological aspect of doing it.
Can someone lose more weight acutely water loading versus just tapering the water down with the sodium and the carbs?
It's quite hard to measure, really. I think like exactly how much someone loses when they're doing a water load, because obviously you're using the combination of all like the low carb, low sodium, low fiber. I've seen instances where people have water loaded and they haven't lost any weight, where they've actually like put on weight on fight,
That would
where they're
suck.
just like the weight just hasn't dropped. The weight just hasn't dropped, and I like in terms of like responders and non-responders to water, I definitely think there is that. Um, yeah, it's quite hard to measure like exactly how much, but like the research that has shown, it's around like 1-2%. And I think for the 1-2% difference and the burden that you're placing yourself on water on a fight week, is there a better way of doing things? I think there probably is.
Yeah.
And also I look at, say some people only the average maybe like 1-2%, and then all week the up all night, the pain all night, the angry, the moody, and then that comes the actual weight cut scenario, and they're just in a shit place. They're psychologically just tired. They just want to get over, and then that weight cut, the actual weight cut becomes like just a shit weight cut because it's just been not a good week. So I think, well, if you're coming into that weight cut like as best as you possibly can, and you may have to cut an extra 1%, you're probably going to do that a lot easier than what you've like doing the water loading strategy where you're feeling like shit all week. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And it'll be interesting to actually go even deeper on kind of this final, I guess, weight cut week, and we can kind of go into like post weigh-ins and even before that, just strategies for people who are listening. But obviously, you mentioned like that little trifecta of kind of like that low sodium, low carbohydrate, low fiber, to I guess help facilitate some of that fast weight loss. Be interesting to kind of maybe go into some examples of what kind of foods and meals make up I guess that strategy that people could, implement for themselves potentially. Yeah, go at them.
Sweet. Yeah. So in terms of fight week low carb, low fiber, carb, sodium meals, I'll give like a template what a fighter that a meal plan template that I usually give to fighters. So something simple in the mornings would be like an omelette, whether that's with maybe some tomatoes or maybe some chicken or some beef. That's really simple breakfast to have on fight week. Some fighters don't particularly like eggs, so something like a protein yogurt with some like mixed berries and some peanut butter. That's usually also a good option. A lunch idea. I'm a big fan of this satay chicken. One, because it's quite a high calorie dish as well with the peanut sauce. And there's different like variations that you can do it without adding, because typically like an Asian type satay sauce has got sodium in it with the soy sauce, so we just don't add the soy sauce in that dish. So that's a really good one, like satay chicken skewers with maybe want to get me some avocado or some tomatoes. I tend to like having the chicken thighs over the chicken breast just for having just the higher calories. A snack idea would again be something like a a protein yogurt. Or another thing I like to do is make like these desserts, like these peanut butter cups or Biscoff cups, where you add a little bit of chocolate chips, you melt it, put it in a cake dish, scoop of peanut butter or Biscoff, put it in the freezer. That is like the winning the snack on fight week. It gives the fighters a little bit of a psychological boost because they know they're having a bit of a treat. And then in terms of like a dinner option, one of my favorite ones that my fighters use is we have like a lamb meatballs or lamb or beef meatballs. So we're trying to have like 20% fat, so you're still getting them. It's a higher calorie dish because you're not having the carbohydrates. Add that with like a tomato based sauce with some herbs and spices, and that's like a really good meal. Like a big thing I try and implement as well on fight week is the enjoyment of the food, where you're not just eating. You give the Rod Tang example, a chicken breast and a boiled egg. Like how can we make fight week as enjoyable as possible? So that's like a big thing I try and implement, try and think of new recipes that I can give the fighters, where obviously the most important thing is having the low carb, low fiber, low sodium strategies to get that weight off, but also the enjoyment of the foods. So yeah, that's like what you see with like the UFC PI now. Like some of the dishes that you see on the vlogs are like unbelievable because the chefs are coming up with like new ideas. How can you make that fight week just that little bit more enjoyable? Also in terms of like after weighing strategies, basically depending on what you've done. Let's say you've cut 2 kilos in water weight. You've done all the fight week strategies. You've done low carb, low fiber, low sodium all week, and then it comes to the day of weighing, and you cut 2 kilos through passive or active dehydration, whether that be the sauna or running. So the first thing is getting that fluid back in. So it's the rehydration's the main thing. So immediately after weigh-ins, you really want to be getting, say, like a litre and a half of fluid in the first like hour. That could be water and an electrolyte solution. The most important thing, what I tend to see now with the electrolyte brand surge, you see like there's so many electrolyte brands popping up now. They're saying this is the optimal thing for rehydration. It's making sure that sodium's the dominant electrolyte in that electrolyte brand, because a lot of them are adding like potassium, calcium as the main electrolyte in that solution. And when you're sweating through active or passive dehydration, sodium's the main electrolyte lost in that sweat. So you want sodium to be the dominant electrolyte. So something like that, water and electrolytes within the first hour. And then I like to implement like a sports drink, like a Gatorade or a Powerade, over the second hour. Then you're starting to get them carbohydrates slowly back in. And then over the next couple of hours, it's introducing like easily digestible carbohydrates, like the sports drinks, bread, jam, honey. Cereals are a good option if you're used to having cereals. Some people obviously don't really have that, or have a bit of an intolerance to milk, or they don't usually have that. So something simple like that over the next hour or so. And then you want to be having your main meal. I try and say, what have you been having throughout fight camp for your lunch and dinner? And stick to that kind of simplicity. If you've been having pasta all fight camp and you're having a chicken rice dish, okay, have that as your main meal. I don't like to introduce like things that you've never had before in the post weighing scenario. Like have something that you've been regularly having. So like a chicken rice pasta dish, a high carbohydrate meal, and then throughout the day, just keep sipping water, keep having like your light snacks, and then same with the evening meal, having something once again that you've been having throughout fight camp. And like a big thing that a lot of fighters do is they tend to think that, oh, I just need to eat. And from people who worked in me, they've gone, I've weighed in, I've eaten too much, and then I can't eat anymore within the first couple of hours of weighing. It's spacing that out across the day. Like it's important to not just consume everything at once, just like space it out. I always say to fighters, if you feel full, don't force anything down you. Give it an hour or two. If you feel you can eat more, then go for it. But just listen to your body. And then hope that kind of covers things. But yeah, it's you don't want to be having like keeping the fat low, keeping the fiber low post weighing, because that will slow down digestion. So you don't want to be going towards anything like you know a McDonald's or a pizza or a burger. You still want to be keeping the fat content and the fiber low in that period, but still having like foods that you've been typically having throughout fight camp, as your main meals, like your pastas, chicken, rices. So in terms of a structured plan, 8 weeks out, so really like what I mentioned before about you want to see, what's your starting weight and what's your fight week, and what's the weight that we want to hit on fight week. The sweet spot's usually around like 6 to 8% out. Like some fighters sit close to 10% range. So we kind of want to work backwards and go, okay, that's where we want you to hit. We want you to, the main thing for the fight camp is we want you to be as fueled as possible for your training sessions. So we don't want to be introducing any kind of fight week strategies 8 weeks out, low carb or anything. We want you to be as fueled as possible, but whilst also hitting your weight loss target. So, as I mentioned before, about like the 3-2-1 principle is a good one if you're kind of unsure of where to start a fight camp. So like a meal plan example for like the 3-2-1 would be, let's say a morning would be, something simple as like oats or porridge in the morning. And then you've got a morning training session. Then post training, you've got maybe something simple as a recovery smoothie with carbohydrates to recover for that future session that you'll have in the evening time. Something simple as like chicken, rice, pasta dish, like a high carbohydrate lunch. And then pre-training, say a lot of fighters train in the evening time. So I try to give something like easy digestible carbohydrates, really simple, whether that could be, some honey and banana and rice cakes, or maybe a sports drink, something that they can tolerate, nothing like a really big meal before the training. So I try and give that maybe like 1-2 hours before a big training session. Say they have the training session 5-6 o'clock, they finish 8-9 o'clock. You want to be having carbohydrates to recover for that subsequent day. So same kind of principles with your lunch. You want to be having a high carbohydrate dinner, whether that be like a pasta dish, chicken, rice, potatoes, and then because the most important thing is you want to be recovering for the next session. If you go on low carbohydrate and then the next morning you've got a really big training session, you're probably going to feel it in that session. You're going to feel probably a little bit fatigued. Maybe the one session you could get away with it, but if you're constantly doing that, you're going to start noticing your training output's going to drop. And that's what happens with a lot of fighters, where they've got too much weight to cut. So then they go low carbohydrate very early on in the fight camp. So they're not adequately fueling the bodies for the training sessions. And then that's the downstream to that is they're starting to feel like more fatigued in the fight camps. They haven't got the energy, but because they've got so much weight to cut, you have to drop things down in order to get the weight off. So it is important to really manage your nutrition, not just out of fight camp, but it's in fight camp, but out of fight camp. So you're not coming into every fight camp thinking, shit, I've got a lot of weight to lose now. Let's kind of get the ball rolling. Let's have a little bit of structure outside the camp. Yeah, in terms of that, how much is too much to lose? It's hard to give a specific number, because a lot of people are really good at. Some people, I kind of like define, like some people are really good at cutting weight. Some people aren't. So I've got fighters where, let's say they sit 10 kilos above the fight weight out of camp. We know on fight week that they can sweat. I've got guys who can sweat 3 kilos in an hour, and like it's like a walk in the park. So like we know that from that point of view, like we don't really need to diet them down like super low, because they're quite comfortable doing that. They've got a really good sweat rate, and just the tolerance of the heat's quite good. Whereas some people, the same scenario, got 10 kilos to lose, but they sweat like the sweat rate's awful. So we know, okay, well, we need to diet it down a bit more, because we know the weight cut is going to be a lot harder in comparison to the other guy. So I think a lot of it for me is, one, is it like outside the camp weight, your body composition to that. If you're carrying on a little bit excess body fat, we know we've got a little bit to lose throughout fight camp. Whereas like a lot of people, they're too lean for the weight class. The the walking around at like 12% body fat, and they've got like 10, 12 kilos to lose throughout fight camp, and they're just too big for that weight class. And then like the second scenario would be, how good are you actually making that weight on fight week? Are you a good sweater? Are you yeah, basically like, can you make that weight comfortably? Yeah, I hope that covered it. We felt like waffled on a bit there.
No, you're good.
Yeah, 100%. I see that a lot, and it's not even sometimes a big number. It's where someone every fight camp is just gaining that extra half a kilo, and then every fight camp it's we're doing 2.5 kilos and so on. Then the next time it's 3 kilos and so on. Then and I get it's hard for a fighter to be in a fight camp. You've got a goal, you've got a name, you've got a date, you've got an opponent, you've got someone to focus on. When you're out to fight camp, you haven't got that. So that structure, I can understand from like a habit point of view. It's very hard to kind of to be on it all year round. But I've noticed a trend with the top people I work with. They never really struggle to make the weight. There's some kind of discipline outside the fight camp. There's just something about them where, yeah, they don't just finish the fight and completely go off the rails, or put on tons of excess weight. There's just a different mindset, and I definitely noticed a trend where a fighter at like a class as lower level tends to have more of them behaviors than someone who's like a top level, that kind of ballooning up outside the fight camp. And people can probably give examples of like, oh, what about like someone like Paddy the Baddy balloons up? Apparently, what I've heard, Paddy the Baddy, he doesn't actually balloon up that much. He's one of them people that kind of keeps it on his face where he puts on weight, and he doesn't cut as much as people think. So, from my experience of working with 11 world champions now and one, none of them tend to be like, we don't start fight camp thinking, oh my God, you've got a shitload of weight to lose. It's always just like, okay, how can we make this fight camp better? What can we do to make these little small tweaks? It's not like it's a fat camp now, let's get the weight off.
Same day weigh-in strategies.
Well, funny enough, I've just had someone who's just weighed in today in Thailand. So in Thailand, when they have a same day weigh-in in Muay Thai, it's typically like a 6 a.m. weigh-in, and they fight around like past 6 p.m. So from an ideal point of view, a same day weigh-in, you don't really want to be completely removing carbohydrates. Just for the time period, you've got to get them carbohydrates in. And even like jiu-jitsu tournaments, stuff like that, you may only have like an hour or less than an hour or a couple of hours so you haven't got enough time if you've depleted carbs all week to get that back in. Same really with like with dehydration or like cutting water weight on fight week. If the same day weigh-in, you haven't really got the time to get that fluid back in. And also, if you're rushing to get that in, the carbohydrates and the fluids, that's when potential complications can happen with like you start to feel sick, or you got a little bit of gut discomfort. So the best ones really is like a low fiber, low sodium diet in the days leading up to the weigh-ins, where you can lose that maybe like 1, 2, 3% of your body weight by doing that. But the important thing about that is if you know you're fighting same day weigh-ins and that's like the format that you're regularly competing at, that also means that you need to keep your weight within a good range every time. And like this is quite a common thing in Thailand where fighters will come over here to get a fight. They're struggling to get a fight, and then they'll get one, and it's same day weighing, but they're maybe 5 kilos over, and but like, oh, I want to fight. Like what do you do? So what I said there, that's like the ideal scenario. Like, but sometimes that ideal scenario doesn't happen. Like the guy today I had, he got a week's notice of the fight. He was 5 kilos off, and it's like we're gonna have to try and adopt like some kind of like day before weighing strategies. Even though I would like to do that, but we kind of had to. But luckily in Thailand, he's not going to be fight. He's got about 14 hours to refuel. So I can confidently say with 14 hours, we've got a decent amount of time to rehydrate, to get the carbohydrates in where he may not be an optimal, textbook scenario of being refueled, but he's going to be maybe, 60, 70% there. And like, he knows himself that he had to do that strategy in order to make the weight. He knows it's probably not the best way of doing it long term, but sometimes you have to just kind of roll with it.
Can creatine negatively affect hydration testing with the creatine levels? And thoughts on creatine use, I guess, generally within the weight cut, because a lot of people tend to want to cut it out because of the potential water retention effects.
So the first one, creatine can definitely have an impact. I've seen studies where when they've taken large doses of creatine, that can affect the levels in the urine. So I tend to say to my fighters in the one championship weigh-ins, just remove creatine a couple of days before weigh-ins. Like, don't have to move throughout fight week, just like maybe a day or two before weigh-ins. In terms of removing it on fight week in just a normal scenario, if you've been taking creatine for weeks and weeks on end, or or just regularly, even out of fight camp, you're not really going to see much of a difference in weight if you just remove it on fight week. It's just you're not going to see a difference. But there's other scenarios. If would I recommend taking creatine 2 weeks before you fight? Probably not, because you're potentially going to get some increase in water. So I kind of go, if the fighter, the questions are, have you been taking it for the last 8+ weeks? Yeah. Have you been taking the normal dose? Yeah. Okay, well, I don't feel there's a real need to remove it. If you've been taking like the stuff on, there's a lot of fighters now are getting really interested on the brain health with the creatine, and showing like if you're taking like 20+ grams a day, that can help with like cognitive function, stuff like that. So if the fighter's going, well, I'm taking 20 grams a day, then maybe go, okay, well, maybe we just drop it down to the 5 grams, there might be no difference at all, but let's just drop it down to the normal dose. But yeah, like, I think that's one of them things you probably know yourself. It's just so passed down about the creatine. People just become obsessed with, oh, it's the creatine. I haven't lost weight because of the creatine. And it's like, it's not creatine. Like, it's not. Like, it's just like you get obsessed with like the micro thing, or I put on loads of weight. The fight camp just took creatine. No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I feel it's one of them things that it's never really gonna go away. That I feel it's just gonna stay forever. The creatine.
It will never go. I've had so many athletes be like, I'm not taking this because it makes me cramp, or, I put on all this different weight, or, just every myth under the book gets thrown,
What I say as
into.
well, if it's the creatine, go, okay, are you accurately tracking your calories? Are you on the ball with that? How are you sleeping? How much water you having? Like, you got to ask all them questions before you start blaming the creatine. Like, are you truly in a calorie deficit? Are you following a plan to a T? Like, what's your training schedule? Like, what's your sleep? Like, how much fluid you having? If you can't give me an answer to that, then you can't say to me it's the creatine, because you can't even answer them basic questions. Like, until you tell me them basic questions, like the basic answers without like them questions, like, we're not going to have this discussion about creatine.
Could someone theoretically fail their hydration test because of a creatine intake that's too high, because of that creatine level?
If you do the method that I use, there's no way, because the urine's
Yeah.
like, the urine's too too clear. If you were potentially winging it and just maybe doing the method I said about just chugging a load of water 4 weigh-ins and kind of hoping for the best, potential. I've seen fighters actually blame creatine, and I just see what happened. Like, nah, I personally don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna really like be the to them fail. I think it's mostly down to them like just being too dehydrated or not doing the
Yeah.
water optimally.
Is there much difference between now that our connections somehow
Yeah, that's
miraculously come together?
oh.
Is is there? I mean, you work with a ton of different fighters within the one FC. Is there much difference? Well, okay, there's always individual differences, but how different is, I guess, the weight cut strategy, or maybe even some of the dietary changes between the fighters, or is a lot of it just like pretty much similar? I'm not going to say strategy, almost like similar plan for all of them. They all kind of follow a very similar path.
It is very it's similar principles in terms of like so I kind of the method that I do to get my fighters passing the hydration test and one, that's just like a trial and tested method. And like, could there be a way of doing it differently? There potentially is, but like because I know it works, I would want to kind of deviate from it. So they can in that sense, they kind of follow the same principles. Like the fight week strategy is very similar. It just depends. Like I've had the fighter on one, he was fighting in August, and he fights at 57, and he's walking around like 62 kilos. He's actually like a friend of mine too. Worked him for maybe 8-9 camps, and we know he's like a really good sweater. We know like he can sweat 3 kilos in like an hour, and like just comfortable, just like super comfortable. He'll just go on a run and like no problem at all. And he's like, I don't want to do like low carb and all that on fight week. I was like, okay, well, why don't we just do this then? Why don't we just drop the fiber, drop the sodium, we keep the carbohydrates pretty high all week, and we'll just get you down to say like 60 kilos, and then we'll just cut the rest in water. He's like, okay, let's do that. And we did that. So it's kind of like, it's different to every person. And I think the benefit of like what we did there is when you work with someone for multiple camps, you kind of know like what the sweat rate's like, what how they respond to the strategies. But if you're doing someone that you've only worked with like maybe 1 or 2 camps, you kind of still try and stick to the similar fight week principles. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. I guess one of my final ones on here. I don't know if I don't know. It's just a random question that I was just thinking of before in terms of like eating into competition. Obviously, you have a long time after weigh-ins to kind of almost eat your way into competitions, but maybe
Yeah.
guys who are I don't know if you have this or if this is very common at all, but maybe guys that are not well above their weight class. Maybe they're fighting. Maybe they're on weight normally out of camp, or maybe they're maybe a couple of kilos under the weight limit, and maybe like eating in. Is that something that you ever come across where guys maybe just kind of sit around, they don't weight cut at all?
Um, from my experience, I never really have someone who fights under. Probably I don't, because they probably wouldn't employ me if they fight under, because they wouldn't. And in terms of people who are like, I have people who are relatively close to the fight weight. But yeah, in terms of having people like, there's always, I think for me, even especially like, once again, given like the one championships are now, there's always people that like employ me because the hydration thing is such a thing shrouded in mystery. Like people just hire me because they just want to make sure that's okay. Even like when I've had fighters and they've only had a kilo to cut, they still want to just
Yeah.
make sure
Okay.
the hydration thing, because the thing with the hydration, if you fail the hydration, if you do it wrong, and so let's say you've cut a couple of kilo and you've done and you failed, it's very difficult to kind of pass again. Like I want to mention about the analogy with the sponge, whereas you fail the hydration, the thing is like you drink water again to try and pass it, the body's just going to go hold on to that water, then they try and pass the hydration again, they fail, and then they drink again, and it's just like I've seen it. I'm at every weigh in, and it's, you can see it, it's just a shit process. So it's better like nail it the first time, you're cool. This is what people say, oh, it's the hydration thing. Like I've kind of got like two thoughts. And for me, obviously, from a business point of view, it's helped me like grow my business because people want to make sure the past hydrations from that side of it. It's like, well, there's a double-edged sword. Do I think it's like an optimal thing to do? Probably not. It's not really a good measure of like the indicators of hydration. But when people say it's dangerous, it's not really dangerous in terms of like if you do it properly the first time. Like that's not. It's relatively safe to do that. When it becomes dangerous is when you do fail and you're dehydrated and then you're chugging loads of water back and then you're cutting the weight and then you're trying to pee again. That's when it kind of becomes a dangerous scenario. If you do it right the first time, it's not dangerous. That's like the part when you fail is when it becomes because you're messing with your electrolytes and water balance in your body, and that's when potential complications can happen.
So do you think then, without getting yourself in trouble with the 102, do you think the hydration test is doing what it's supposed to be doing in terms of, I guess they're trying to stop fighters cutting so much weight, I guess is probably the main thing.
I suppose when people fail in a way, the stopping people from cutting too much weight because they're failing. Like I suppose in a way it is preventing people because then they go, well, it's but then obviously if like people work with someone like myself or other nutritionists and there's kind of ways around it, people are still recklessly cutting weight, but you know, there's always someone who's failed. Like every show I've been to every show now for the last like 2 years because it's 30 minutes away from my condo. I always have someone every week, so I always see people failing. So like in that sense, I suppose it maybe is preventing people because you know you haven't done it right. I can see like the reason behind they want to do it, but like say like that the kind of the heart's in the right place, but do I think it's an optimal thing to do? Probably not. But as I said, from like I can't be like, oh, it's really because like from a business point of view, it's helped grow my business. It's kind of a weird scenario from like a practitioner side of thing, business, but yeah.
Do you think there's ever a world where weight cutting is no longer a thing? And do you think, and what do you think, or maybe theorize, would be a better potential replacement than a hydration test for maybe not stopping people cutting weight, but some people doing dangerous stuff?
I think if they did something like maybe like you can't be over a certain weight the next day or something like that, and they put like serious things down and go, look, you can't be over. There's one championship used to do a post weigh-in thing where you can't be over it.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. I was just thinking now, I'm sure someone already did that, but did they stop that or something?
Yeah, they stopped that. So I think if they did that and there was like I think unfortunately, like this is not like on one, maybe another thing where people implement that. Is there like a real serious, you know, implication for you being like that, like for you being over that weight, rather than just going, oh, you get a warning.
I guess the other thing is as well is people will still cut weight and then they'll just fight dehydrated.
That's the other side. So it's kind of like there's never really an ideal. There's always the thing is with fighters, they're always gonna find a way around something. Like I've had a fight, I'm gonna mention name where he won the belt. This is when they had the strategy, they implemented the can't be over the same way. I think it's over 5%, and he was like 7%. So in order for him to get his bonus, he had to go and skip in the toilet and then come back after he's literally just won his belt in one and come back and step on the scales again, and he's under 5%.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's the thing. Yeah. I mean, everything will be gamed, I guess. And as weight cutting is part of the sport, and it'll be there. And it's just making sure that it's actually done safely instead of, not taking to the, I think the problem is people take it to the extreme, and there are extreme things done without supervision and professional help.
And the thing is, well, people go, oh, weight cutting should be banned and this, and like, if you're in the space and you're around it, that's just not going to, like, it's just, how can we educate the fighters? How can we make things better for them? How can there be more people like myself and other nutritionists, like, creating a better culture? Because, like, to ban weight, it's just, there's going to be a loophole, and fighters are going to jump through that loophole. It's just, like, luckily now there's there's more people trying to get into the space. Like I've seen a big surge in. I was thinking about this the other day. Like a massive surge in like S&C coaches for combat sports. Like
Oh yeah,
I'm like all I
dude,
see on Instagram right now is like
that's
S&C coach.
crazy.
That's like it used to be like the nutritionist, but I feel like the S&C is like there's way more S&C coaches in combat
Yeah,
sports now than nutritionists. Like I don't see that many nutritionists.
yeah,
There was a point where everyone was like, "There's popping up new nutrition." It's the
yeah.
S&C now. That's it.
Like weight cutting was a big, almost like trend for a while for
Yeah.
nutrition, and now it is S&C. Oh, there's a lot.
Well, I feel like when I started out, it's been like 5 years I've been doing this. I think I probably started out at the right time where it was still relatively like
Yeah,
new. I don't get me wrong, I think people can still start and be a combat sports nutrition, but I think from like a growth point of view and a business point of view, like I think I started at the right time because I think now it's like a very saturated market where I think it'd be very hard to kind of get your
yeah,
foot in the door from like I think from a purely business point of view, from like you doing a job that you like that's cool. But I think
yeah.
it'd be I think there's definitely like a saturated market, especially in the S&C things. I'm like, I'm seeing S&C coaches everywhere right now.
It is crazy. It is crazy, man. Like,
Mm,
yeah, you see it all over Instagram, just the amount of content being put out in the space. And I was like, holy shit! I swear it's grown lately, and everyone's just kind of. I think everyone's just been told to like niche down into a market, and
yeah,
because obviously, I guess the UFC is growing and everything else, and
yeah.
so it's just kind of like pour in there.
And I think the thing as well, like my advice for people starting off, it's not a very well paid job to get into when you first it's not
Coaching
it's
is it's not
I
usually a
remember
very
when I
well
was
paid
doing
role.
this, I was doing like weight cuts and sport tours and doing I'm like, it's not a glamorous, like people think it's not the most glamorous job in the world. People think I'll work with all these champs. It's a lot of
Yeah,
like running up and down, there's getting the food. It's like, I'm, when I have a weigh in the next day, I'm dead. It's not the glamorous job that people think.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, for all of us who've worked in like professional sport, like you're filling water bottles, you're doing all the other small stuff, and like you're trying to make sure everything's organized. And yeah, as you mentioned, you're
Yeah.
on all day, you're on the night before, you're on throughout the competition, you're on afterwards, making sure everything's organized. Like, yeah, it's full on. It's like it's literally people like usually go 9 to 5, and then they switch off at 5, and then they go back to work at 9 on in coaching stuff. There's no switch off. Yeah, and
And that's the thing for me with the time difference. Like I'm up, I'm working. I could still be answering messages before I go to bed, like just
yeah,
all day. And it's just don't get me wrong. Like I love what I do, but it's like if people think it's like, oh yeah, it's a good job, but being you've got to put the hours in. Like next week, I've got 5 people on, and sometimes I've like currently in the one stuff, I'm having maybe like 5, 6, 7 people
oh
weighing
my
in on the same
gosh,
day, and like it's going up the stairs, it's going down the stairs, it's going up the
yeah.
elevator, all on different floors, and going up the fire escape and doing this, and yeah, it's a job like uh, it's such a unique, crazy job, like the highs and the lows and stuff. Like I'm as much as like sometimes you think, oh, you're always on, but it's such an enjoyable job for me. It's like
Mhm.
get to work with like elite fighters and be around that. It's like it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and then once you get the wins, like the wins, just like you forget everything else when when the wins come. Like
Oh yeah,
anything that was you know anything that was bad or anything beforehand doesn't matter anymore, and then it
yeah.
just keeps you rolling forward within it.
Well, I remember in Japan, like so when Rodtang fought in Japan, I also had um 4 other fighters, 2 fighting for world titles, another girl fighting, and like Rodtang won. Me 2 guys won the world titles, and I'm walking back to my hotel. I'm like, I've literally in Japan. I've just had that. It's like what a crazy what a
Doesn't
crazy
get better.
experience. Like it's just mad to sit there thinking like just lads from Liverpool like somehow managed to be in Asia and then like go in Japan and work on it's just mad. Like it's such a crazy sport, and that feeling never really goes away. Like that winning when they've won and the adrenaline from that is like, yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Peter. Where can people find and follow you? Keep up with everything you're doing.
So best place is probably Instagram. Condition.nutrition should be the first thing that pops up. Yeah, so I'm always posting on Instagram quite regularly. So yeah, if people want to reach out, they want to drop me a DM for any information, yeah, feel free to do so.
Sweet. I'll link that up in the description as well. Hopefully this episode doesn't go all janky and stuff through the through the podcast. I'll try and make it flow. We'll get there. But I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.